You told me you got caught up in the tear gas as well. Describe what happened to you.
Oh, just tasted a little tear gas. Tasted like fascism.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
Welcome back to Politics Unplugged, the podcast. This week I am joined by Wes Gullett and Matt Grodsky here. We're going to talk about what? We're talking about the big story of the past week, the protest related to the anti-ICE protest and the Trump's reaction to all that. Thanks for joining us here this week.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, high energy today,
Thanks
man.
for the pizza.
Yeah, high energy after we just
we
had free pizza, as we always
nap
do,
time.
as we always do for our guests, as we offer them free food.
Only the best guests.
Yeah,
It's the only way we get people here, actually.
which was, it was very attractive for me.
Well, I'll start with you, Matt. What was your big takeaway from this week? I mean, we can start by talking about a little bit of background here. It seemed like, Trump, he federalized the National Guard, but, to go and help with, seize, suppress some dissent that he thought was going on. But it seemed like L.A. and everybody had everything under control.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a big takeaway since the election in November is that people have been saying the Democrats need to find a unifying message. And I think for once they were pretty in lockstep this time around with the pushback, how to message it, and calling attention to the fact that this feels like a pretense to trying to put into place the Insurrection Act, right? So I think he ran into a little bit more resistance from the messaging side than he anticipated.
Yeah, and did you see this, Wes? I mean, you've also worked for governors, been high-ranking cabinet members for governors. What's your thoughts on this? So the governor just coming in without asking permission from a governor, just go ahead and nationalize the state National Guard.
Yeah, it's unique. It's a unique. Usually, it's the governor that calls for that. The governor is in charge of the National Guard. Obviously, Governor Newsom didn't want help, but Trump did it. It's a setup. The whole thing was a setup from the ICE raids in L.A. to cause the uproar.
Yeah.
And then, it's starting a fire and then calling yourself a hero for putting it out.
What did somebody like Jimmy Fallon call him? He's just an arsonist with a hose.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Because it did seem that, again, when you were working with Governor Symington, Republican Governor Symington, I mean, he wouldn't have called in the National Guard for anything, for help on something like that, unless he felt it was out of control, that the state could not handle this. And there was no evidence at this point that suggests that California or Los Angeles County was, under the kind of threat it couldn't handle.
Yep.
That's exactly right. And we there was always tension between the state and the city of Phoenix because the city of Phoenix mayor was always running for governor back then. And so, there was always this tension, but it never got to that point.
Yeah.
Because, it just wasn't to that point. And you can't, the president literally caused the problem with the ICE raids being so forceful and aggressive in a very dark blue place. So there was intentionality there.
And what do you think, too? I mean, again, I was talking about this earlier on TV shows. Like my whole life, Republicans have been talking about we want migrants here, but we want them to come here legally. Well, the people that were going off the ICE raids we saw earlier before they started doing these workplace roundups were people that were going to court, doing the right thing, showing up to court. I mean, what does that say?
Well, yeah, I mean that they've totally.
They were trying to come here legally.
They were trying to come here legally, but the right has completely gone off the deep end. You saw some of their louder voices that were just saying the quiet part out loud this week. I mean, you had Charlie Kirk saying, "Hey, we need to put a moratorium on immigration just in general. We're full," whatever the hell that means. But then I thought the humorous part this week was that a light bulb has seemed to have gone off in the president's head. So I guess he can be taught. He realized that, decimating the workforce for farmers was bad for farmers. So
In the
all of a
restaurant-
sudden-
and the
and
restaurant
yeah,
industry, yeah.
hospitality. So all of a sudden he's like, oh man, who could have predicted this? So yeah, that was an interesting pivot. But good for him. Learning's hard.
Yeah, I mean, were you surprised to hear that from Donald Trump? I mean, he took the Truth Social and basically did. It said that there's going to be some, what I think he called common sense reforms coming really soon to protect farmers, to protect hotels and business in the hospitality industry. Were you surprised that he would say that?
It's not dissimilar from the tariffs. We're going to have these tariffs. Well, we're not going to have these tariffs. So we'll see it. It's not the Republicans have developed the messaging around immigration to the point that I don't know that they can walk it back. So you're either here illegally or you're not.
Yeah.
And if Trump's going to equivocate on that, then they're walking themselves into a box canyon, which is bad on the issue. I don't see them changing. I think that this is the issue that they think is going to make the difference. And the rank and file is supportive of it. They don't want immigrants. They don't want a changing America.
So do you think politically then he pays a price if he does do common sense reform? Because
we've tried common sense reform on immigration for years, and there's no middle ground, and you can't with the Republican majorities. What are you going to do? The Democrats aren't going to vote for a Republican common sense reform, and the Republicans aren't going to vote for a common sense reform. So you don't have majority. So you can talk about it until it goes away, but.
Well, and from a psychological perspective too, I'm not sure if at this point, because you were alluding to, does he have a political price to pay? I don't know if his base would necessarily care if he pivoted. I don't know if they would believe if he pivoted. I don't think they would remember necessarily to hold him accountable for it. I'm concerned that, we've crossed into a place where, at least his base, 30%, they will go with whatever he says, even if it's a direct contradiction to the messaging that's been in place for him for the last decade and before. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm not holding my breath on that one.
I mean, do you see it that way? I mean, I got to tell you, because I was surprised to hear that from the president the other day when he was basically making that admitting that, and I was also kind of left questioning, like, what the hell kind of common sense reform could accomplish what you want?
Well, here's the problem. Much of what he has done, he's getting pushback from his people on the drill baby drill thing. The price of oil has gone down because guess who's drilling? The Saudis and others. They're pumping fuel into the market, and it's reducing the cost. There's no drilling going on in America. And so the guys that voted for him, who run the drilling companies, are like, "Whoa, dude, what happened?" We're laying people off. And I heard the former head of the Petroleum Association, who was clearly a Trump guy, talking about, this is not working out the way we thought it was. And so we've been talking to the president. So he's getting these messages from his base, the fundamental base of the businesses that did support him, and they're saying, you got to back off. And that's restaurateurs, that's these farmers. You look at the farmers, and the farmers all voted for him, and now they're like, what's these tariffs?
All these soybeans.
What are we going to do with all these soybeans? So it's a problem.
So, I mean, where do you think this all ends, though? I mean, that's the because we've got a court ruling this week.
Yep.
That said, the federal court said that told Trump you can't do this.
Yep.
You got to give control of the California National Guard back to Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Now, it's on pause for now, that ruling, because obviously the Trump administration is appealing that. But where does this all end? Because I mean, does this end with more protests? Does it end with riots in the streets? I mean, or does it just quietly go away?
Well, I think it just depends on what the administration ultimately does and the speed of that appeal. The one thing that has surprised me the last several months is, despite a few things in terms of them defying the courts and being called out for that, is they do seem to capitulate after a certain period of time, especially obviously when it gets to the Supreme Court and things like that. So does it get paused and drawn out long enough where people lose interest and the immediate concern kind of dissipates? I don't know. Does an immediate ruling come out that says you have to pack up and leave, and then he's playing chicken again? Those are the scenarios that we have options for. But in the meantime, I think you're seeing protests not just in L.A. but around the country, and including, the situation could get exacerbated more this weekend with the No Kings rally that's happening, right? So there's the potential for things to escalate, but also, depending on what happens in the courts, could fizzle out.
Well, people don't like disobedience. They don't like burning Waymos. They don't like burning Waymos in the street. And if they're in the No Kings rallies, if there are problems, if there is violence, people don't like that.
Yeah.
And so when he comes in and stops it, he's going to look like he's the law and order guy. This whole business with the military, though, is the scary part, because when you nationalize the U.S. military and have them on the ground, we were out walking the dog this morning, and my wife and I were talking about it. And my wife says, if some young woman gets shot by a Marine or killed by a Marine somehow, you can't walk that back. Construction guy working in our neighborhood said, you cannot walk that back. You can't walk that back. If a young girl gets killed, then by a Marine, we have a big problem. And that was a construction guy working, in our neighborhood. So this is, to me, that's the bigger issue. The National Guard is one thing. The United States military on U.S. soil enforcing the law is another thing.
And I
altogether.
think Wes makes the right point. Ultimately, if you zoom out and it's just the national political landscape, forget about the swing states for a second, you're playing for that persuadable 15% of swing voters that are either going to make or break the next presidential election. They'll have influence, obviously, in the midterms. And I think most of them see the deployment of the Marines as excessive, and that doesn't sit well with them. And I think that's why Democrats are wise to jump on that and make that the main issue instead of getting down in the weeds on the National Guard. And as hard as it can be for us, the morality of the raids themselves, I think you need to focus on the Marine element of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You talk about the 15% of swing voters out there. I mean, someone like the construction worker that you were talking to this morning, I mean, that's probably someone like that. I mean, because I think most Americans are busy with their lives and they can't follow the day-to-day tick-tock
right.
of politics, which is what we do. And even me these days, I don't know about you guys, it gets extremely hard to keep up with what's going on.
That's exhausting.
And I can't imagine if I'm just the average voter with a couple of kids in a real life I'm trying to live, trying to keep up and make these decisions.
Well, and the way that the media works today, I mean, most people aren't fed political news.
Yeah.
So on your news feed, you're getting what you like, and you're just not even seeing it. I was talking to a neighbor of mine yesterday about something Trump had done, and he's like, "Oh, that happened? That's a big Padilla getting arrested." I had no idea because he's not being fed that news.
Yeah,
and
it tells you a lot about your friend there. What kind of news?
Well,
you
but
like
I wouldn't have seen it if somebody hadn't sent it to me.
Yeah, unless you're active on Twitter or social, or you're getting those reels in real time. You had to wait for it to show up on your traditional news feed, which is nightly news or something like that.
What is your take on? You bring up Padilla. Like, what is your take on that? I mean, a lot of screaming headlines like, U.S. senator, forcibly removed and thrown to the ground, handcuffed. I'm speaking with another Democrat earlier this morning and said, like, why is that the issue? Nobody should be treated that way.
Well, yeah,
but
it's also shocking they didn't know who he was. They're in California.
Yeah, even though he's identifying himself.
He's a United States Senator from California. You'd think you might notice him asking questions. And why wouldn't you say, Senator, we can have this conversation after the press conference, but this isn't the appropriate place. This is for the press.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to come to your committee. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But not even knowing who the guy is shocking. Shocking.
Yeah. I mean,
And where was the staff that the advanced staff would know? Somebody should have been in the room that knew who everybody in the room was.
Yeah.
This is a Homeland Security secretary. You'd think they would know who's in the room.
It's what happens when you got, legacy staff and you fill it with sycophants, and they're for her especially, they're more interested in having her in there for photo ops than doing real, smart advance work. The thing is that his base will love what they saw. They'll love that they saw, a senator get thrown to the ground because that's, America, law and order. But again, the persuadable 15%, the people that are more common sense oriented, they won't like that. And I think it is a blunder on the administration's part from that perspective.
There's no one who should, even the base should be surprised by somebody who's not creating any physical kind of problem being thrown down to
I would hope so.
And so it was crazy. It was a crazy thing,
yeah. So, I mean, again.
Can you imagine Strom Thurmond being,
God.
thrown down? I'm sorry, I'm dating myself.
Strom Thurmond.
Jesse
Which version of Strom Thurmond? The 110-year-old Strom Thurmond, the 80-year-old, the 60-year-old? He was in the Senate for a long time, man.
No more records.
Yeah, well,
Bummer.
I mean, yeah, so again, where does this end? I mean, let's say the federal judge's ruling gets upheld by the Supreme Court. Obviously, this probably goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. It says, no, you can't, President, you can't do this. Do you think Trump listens, or is this
On an issue like this, probably. But the question is, because the appeals court said, let's, we want to have an evidentiary hearing, and we want to hear, be briefed on this, and we want to find out. And who knows how that's going to end up. We would have never thought the Supreme Court would allow him to be able to do whatever he wants to do. So they're gonna push the boundaries. They're gonna push and push and push. I think when they find those boundaries, they'll stop. I hope, but they're gonna push them, and they're gonna make the Supreme Court tell them draw the guardrails. And until that happens, they're going to continue to do that.
I'll get dark and scary. I mean, I think the Supreme Court is
let's bring it on,
why
man.
not?
Bring it on.
It's a self-preserving enterprise at the end of the day. And I don't think the Supreme Court is ever going to want to have the precedent set that he can order the military to go and do whatever he wants because, ultimately someday maybe he could remove the justices if he doesn't like them, right? So I think that's probably sitting back there in some of the members who are a little bit more politically oriented, less so judicially. So that's kind of my read on that situation.
Well, let's wrap in. Let's talk about some raw politics of this whole thing. We do have a 2026 midterm election coming up. How is this going to play this kind of stuff next year? Again, you hear over and over, rightfully so. I mean, Donald Trump was elected. Won the popular vote, won the Electoral College. He had a tough immigration platform. And he's taken that as a mandate to do what he's doing now. Some people say, Democrats say, well, he's taken that mandate and is misreading that. He's overstepped now at this point. Is this going to be a problem for Republicans in the midterm next year?
I don't think that I haven't seen any change in the people who put Trump in office and the people who put the Republicans in office in majorities in both houses. I don't see that electorate that did that changing. I don't think there's been anything that's happened that has made people like, oh my God, this is out of control. That hasn't happened. And so I think if the election were held today, I think it'd be very similar.
Okay.
A very similar result. And the Democrats are they are scattered on the field of battle. And so right now, the Republicans kept form. They're like the Roman legion, you know, hold the line. And the Democrats are just scattered around, running around. And so you've got, you've got a hard situation.
Scattered, looking for a leader, looking for a message. I mean, that's not inaccurate, Mike.
Oh, no, I'm not going to dispute that at all. But yeah, I would agree with Wes. I think if the election were held today, it's a very similar situation to what we saw last November. I do think that the news cycle, again, moves so fast. What's happening right now is not going to be what people use to make their determination in November.
Yeah, because remember like several months ago when Elon Musk and Trump were fighting?
Yeah.
Wait.
That was a week ago.
That was a week ago.
Yeah. And it seems like several months.
No, but that's why when we get out of the wilderness a little bit and we're done being scattered, you're going to have to package all this up and remind people how they were feeling at this point in time, and make sure that you're telling a narrative in these key battleground states and districts, so that you're reminding people, because you can't expect them to remember it on their own. And I do think that wherever the economy is at, a year plus from now, that's going to be more of an indicator than anything on the immigration front. I think, we'll see what polling says after this, but whether you like it or not, he was getting high marks on the immigration front. Yeah. So I don't think that's the issue we need to be waging war on.
Yeah, I mean,
for the Democrats.
For the Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, he was elected to, to do something at the border, and he's largely accomplished that.
Yeah.
Which may be good or bad politics for him, because once you've solved a problem, it's no longer an issue that can get you votes.
Well, but it's going to take a long time to sweep up all the people who are here illegally.
Yeah.
So that they've got that.
Now they're not, because now the farmers, remember. So I don't know. I don't even know what we're doing anymore.
I think he throws stuff up, but the economy is going to be the number one thing, and I would have bet the farm on a recession. In the middle of February, into February, no question about it. Now we've got growth again in the second quarter. Numbers all look good because he backed away from where he was going
again,
and
creates the problem and solves the problem he creates.
Right, exactly. And so everybody's now like, oh, the economy's okay. Everybody got a new car because they were worried about tariffs. So,
well, I also kind of think, like, just zooming out a little bit too, his people and even casual voters out there, whatever they're processing, the main message is this guy does something.
Right.
He's doing things.
Yeah.
So
and action is always better, from the voters' perspective.
And how do you think the public's going to take this military parade? I know it's ostensibly to celebrate the anniversary of the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. It also happens to coincide on his birthday.
It coincides on his birthday. There's going to be a protest that's around that to counter message. Like anything else, it's going to be lost in the news cycle. People won't be talking about it a week from now. So whether the parade looks like something out of North Korea broadcasting or it doesn't, I don't think it's going to be a relevant factor, in 5 days.
Wes, I mean, this doesn't sound like the Republican Party I grew up reading about, like, holding military parades and things like that.
Yeah, Putin had one. I ought to have one. Why does Putin get a cool parade? I want one. So, it's not surprising, and frankly, it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
This coming from me.
Wow, I'm shocked. The military parade, pretty cool.
It's going to be pretty cool.
Wow.
We're going to see a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I've seen them. I've been in Washington when they've had military parades. It's impressive, and it does give a sense of American strength and American. Now, if a Iranian sleeper cell, lights off a bomb, then it'll be a problem.
Yeah. What do you think? We'll end with you, man.
I think from a
parades are cool.
Parades are generally cool.
Well, generally, I disagree. I'm not a fan. I'm not a parade guy.
You just didn't get enough candy thrown at you as a kid. You got to be aggressive. That's the whole thing.
No, I'd rather do anything else than watch a parade.
Well, I think for the general population, I think to Wes's point, it's a patriotic image and it makes people feel good. And we have to remember that the president is masterful at the art of TV and these, feel-good, emotional things like these. So I think it'll be effective from that perspective. But again, in terms of it being a wedge issue or a serious, factor into how people make their decisions on electoral politics, I don't think it's going to be a thing in a week.
All right. We'll wrap with that, then we'll end on a parade.
Thanks for the pizza.
Well, yeah, it'll be fun to watch.
Hey, and anytime, man. Just remember, every time you guys come back on, we'll have lunch for you.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
I'm available anytime there's lunch.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the second half of the Politics Unplugged podcast. As always, producer extraordinaire, Colin Stan. Colin, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
Well,
It's been a week.
it's been a long week. Another busy Friday. Look, you've had a front row seat here for, we've been pretty heavy this week on the big story, which is the LA protests, the anti-ICE protests, the immigration raids, workplace raids. I mean, all of that stuff. We went pretty heavy on that, both here and on the TV show Politics Unplugged. Anything in particular stand out from today?
No, I mean, one of the things that just keeps striking me is there are people acting like LA is burning, and there are like three Waymos burning on one block.
Yeah,
Like
and you're from the area. I mean, you're not
Yes.
from LA, but you're from Orange County.
I'm from Orange County. I'm from the area. I've spent a lot of time in LA. I've spent a lot of time in the area where this is happening, and where it's happening is in a couple blocks downtown in one of the largest cities in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is being so wildly overstated. And the other thing it reminds me of is there are a whole lot of people in this country who will allow any level of abuse towards people.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as one piece of property gets a rock thrown through it, man, they want blood.
Yeah.
You saw it with a lot of the BLM protests where, as soon as someone threw a rock through a CVS window, they just wanted someone to bomb the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
And someone set a few of Google's cars on fire, and now they want the Marines to go in and take care of it.
And again, I was mentioning this on this TV show. It's like images drive a lot of this, and what you saw in certain elements of social media and other news outlets was those shots over and over. And yes, there was some property damage done.
Yep.
And that happens in big cities. I mean, but there was no indication at all from the LA mayor or from the California governor that this was getting out of their control.
Not even close. And they could, they sent out a statement commending the behavior of the protesters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and one of our guests said it, and it's true. The whole thing was an obvious setup.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying. Trump has been saying for years how much he wants to send the military into cities and have them knock heads during a protest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's doing. He's creating something that he knows will prompt a protest, so he can send the military in to start breaking heads.
It's a strong argument to be made for that, man. I mean,
it's really hard to find an argument against that.
I mean, again, like when you look at when Nat Guard was federalized, after the governor of California during the LA riots requested it, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Feel free to fact check me. There were over 13,000 arrests during the LA riots.
Yeah.
There were over between 300-400 arrests that first weekend.
Yeah.
That everybody said, well, LA's burning and all this stuff is happening. Only like 300, 400 arrests.
No, it's a made-for-TV protest. It's very, very, very small, very, very centralized. And there was an interesting photo. There was a big photo where a guy's on top of a car and he's waving a Mexican flag.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the shot that everyone saw from that's been repeated everywhere, made it look like this horrible mob scene with this thing in the middle. And I think the truck's on fire or something. I forget why it was particularly salacious. But anyway, someone had the wide shot of what this was. And what it was one dude on one truck surrounded by cameras and then just open space around it, and protesters at a distance sort of like, yeah, all right. Guys got guys
cool,
on the truck.
bro.
Yeah, and it's, you know, the image gets circulated like it's the end of the world in this horrendous, out of control protest. It was one dude on a truck surrounded by photogs.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Yeah. Just out of proportion.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just, you know, just crazy. And in the middle of all of this, I got to say, I was almost shocked to hear President Trump come out and say, we've got to do something for our farmers and hotel people and restaurants who are losing workers and can't find people. Like, dude, you've been fucking told this for 10 years.
Yes. Yeah. And has opposed legislation that would have addressed that. Yeah, I assume someone got in his ear, and so he sent that out, and we'll probably never hear it again.
We'll see. Yeah, I don't see the people in his administration that are able to make those things happen. I don't see them getting right on top of this.
No, and you know, we went through a whole first term of this. We're in a second term of this. I'm beyond the point of, oh, apparently there's a change of direction from the Trump administration. That's not. It's never moving in a direction. It's just flailing here and there. I doubt we're going to hear this again. We might. It's great if we do, because it's an obvious point and something that people have wanted for years and years, if not decades. Yeah. Well, I'll believe it when it happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now would be a great time for us to pivot locally and talk about all the great work that's being done down at the legislature, but they're not doing crap down there.
No.
Except passing budget proposals in the House that have no chance of passing. I think next week we probably should have something to discuss in terms of a state budget.
Yeah.
It was just pretty interesting to watch the House this past week pass their bluff budget.
Yeah.
But like every year it seems like there's a moment where they have to do this. Like leaders just have to let their members, okay, you're pushing me for a budget. Okay, I'm telling you, there's not the votes. Put it on the board and see what happens.
What's the audience for that?
Them. I guess they get so into themselves down there. It's just the weirdest thing, and issues that they think are do and die for them mean nothing outside of 1700 Washington.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest thing to like really convey to some of these folks. And they'll tell you that they get it, but they don't. Most of them don't.
Yeah. It's just funny to see them do this performative stuff. And I just think, well, who are you performing for? The general public is not sitting at home watching closely as you craft this budget that isn't going anywhere. You send it so you can get her to reject it, and no one's watching. No one cares.
No, and even, I care, as a reporter covering this stuff, for so long. But I got to tell you, man, my least favorite story is a budget story because it means almost fucking nothing to the public.
Yeah.
It's like, at some point this week or at some point next week or the week after, there'll be a story about the state legislature or governor signing off on a 17-point-something billion-dollar state budget. It'll do this, and this.
Yeah.
And there's X amount of money for this, X amount of money for that, and X amount of money for this. Or there's cuts here, cuts there, blah, blah, blah. Those kinds of numbers mean nothing to you.
No, we have no context for it at all.
No. What the fuck is $17 billion?
Yeah, I don't know. And people struggle with the difference between 17 million and 17 billion. And that's
17 billion is
a stark difference.
17 billion is $1 million 17,000 times over.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell that means.
No. Is that a lot? Is that not a lot?
Yeah, but you dig into this stuff and you can find some stuff that's really interesting, but you don't get that immediately. You got to dig through the documents.
Yeah,
and you'll find great stories there. Like I remember one year, there was like a $20,000 cut to this program. It was very niche or niche, if you want to be fancy about it. And it helped. It helped this vulnerable group of people with their bus passes.
Yeah.
Just cut to this thing. And like all these people showed up, and I wrote a story about it. All these people show up. It's like, okay, these are the stories that matter.
Yeah.
You're talking about a multi-billion-dollar budget, like this $20,000 cut or whatever the hell it was. That's where it's at. That's a story.
Yeah.
But by and large, other than that, it's like the major thing is you want to avoid a government shutdown, right? Because what happens if they don't have a budget by the start of the fiscal year, which is July 1st? Well, you don't pay government to run or function. I mean, here's the thing. I've been down there for a long time, and every year they seem to come up with a fucking budget.
They do. Yeah.
Maybe this year, maybe this is the year we get the state government shutdown.
Yeah.
Maybe this year. So, I doubt it. I think they'll come up with something because right now, and it's interesting. And it seems like Hobbs is kind of cribbing from, whether intentionally or not, from the Napolitano playbook. Because what Napolitano would always do is she would go down, because you got three people negotiating a budget. You got the Senate majority leaders, the House majority leaders, which are Republicans, and you've got the governor. And what Napolitano would always do is start making the House and Senate fight, and divide them, and she'd go cut a deal with the Republican-controlled Senate, and it always infuriate the House, right? But it seems like it's shaping up like that this year. Because the governor, is dealing with all these folks, and it seems like now, from what I'm hearing and from what's being reported, is that the real budget is being negotiated between the Senate and the governor. In the House this week, all they could do was pass their bluff budget or advance their bluff budget. I think they were going to. I don't know if it passed the floor. I know they advanced it out of committee on Thursday. We tape on Friday, so I'm not exactly sure what the status of that is. But whether they pass it or not, out of there, it's dead on arrival. How do I know this? Well, the governor put out a statement and said it's dead on arrival. But you keep doing your thing, guys. Guys and gals in the House, you keep doing you.
Yeah. Yes. It's a ridiculous process.
Yeah. Other than that, man, anything else happening this week? Anything?
Well, we lost two musical legends this week.
We did, like true musical legends.
Yeah. A few, it was almost 2 years ago, we did our comparison of our list of the greatest American bands of all time. I had the Beach Boys second on that. I think you also had them pretty darn high. Brian Wilson, who was the Beach Boys for all intents and purposes. Whenever anyone talks about the greatness of the Beach Boys,
it's Brian Wilson.
They're talking about Brian Wilson. They're not talking about 90% of the Beach Boys output. They're talking about Pet Sounds.
And I thought that was a really, really smart observation, because when most of the songs that people know and love from that record, and
Wouldn't It Be Nice and God Only Knows are from Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
I think it was the following project. I think it was the Smile project afterwards that was going to have Good Vibrations. Like, that's the genius of Brian Wilson. It's not fun and Surfing USA and that stuff, which is nice.
You also chafe when they call him surf music, right?
Yeah,
'Cause it's not.
I mean, it's not surf music.
They sing about the surf.
They sing nice little songs about the surf set to
It's not
Chuck Berry
they're
songs.
they're no Dick Dale.
No, they're not. It's not. Yes, Dick Dale is surf guitar. The Ventures were surf music. That stuff is surf music. The Beach Boys were surf music for the Midwest. It was to give people in the Midwest
People surfing all the ponds and lakes out there.
Yeah, it wasn't surf music, but it was. For what it was terrific. Pet Sounds, that era was incomparable. And Pet Sounds was an absolute landmark album. And for people, and it's weird. If people go and listen to it now, it's going to sound weird, and they may not get why it was such a landmark. And the answer is, no one did records like this then. It's this
The whole
cohesive-
production,
production
engineering of the whole thing was revolutionary.
And up until that point, albums were collections of singles they were hoping would be commercially successful. And I don't know that Brian Wilson gave a shit if this was commercially successful or not. It was one big cohesive work of art that he had in his head and had to try and convey to the studio musicians what it was he was doing. and he would have them do these strange things where they didn't get it, and then later he was putting it all together. So when they hear the final product is like, wouldn't it be nice? And they go, oh God, that's what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is hard sometimes to remember and to put things in context like that, because a lot of the things that you hear on that record became standard ways of producing after that. You've heard it all before. It's almost like I always try to remind folks, because I don't even know what that was like when, inevitably there's some stupid, who's the greatest rock guitarist, like type of debate, which spare me. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's whoever you want.
Yeah.
But to bring up Jimi Hendrix, like, we don't know what it was like to live in a world where, like, there was no guitar sound or guitar playing like that.
Yeah. Now everyone does it.
Now everyone and probably does it a whole lot better and more sophisticated and nuanced than Jimmy did, but he was the first one through.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine what it would have been like walking into a club and hearing that for the first time.
And I think people get, like, Sgt. Pepper's was this landmark record, and I think they sort of understand why. Sgt. Pepper's was a response to Pet Sounds. That was, McCartney hearing Pet Sounds and going, my God, I guess we should try and do that. And they came up with Sgt. Pepper's, which for my money is not as good as Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so there's Brian Wilson, the other Sly Stone, who was brilliant and, like, really underrated, I think, and sort of forgotten by a lot of people. Sly and the Family Stone were as good a 60s band as you're going to find, 70s too. They were phenomenal. And he had a lot of personal issues and problems and stuff.
That got in the way of a lot of that.
Yeah.
But he's also like a complete innovator. I mean, there was nobody like. I mean, you could say he's almost the godfather of funk, because there's a lot of that came P-Funk, Funkadelic, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a direct line back to Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah. Interracial band, men and women together in a band, were all sort of unusual and just brilliant stuff. One of my favorite little Sly Stone stories, because it sort of speaks to where he was after, like, the mid 70s. His drug problem got worse, and he was, largely AWOL from then on. Several years ago, the Grammys did a big tribute to him. And they had an all-star band with, like, Dave Grohl and all the usual suspects together playing a medley of Sly Stone songs. And they didn't know if Sly was going to be there. And they came out of the commercial break and introduced it, and the band starts playing, and they literally still don't know if Sly's going to be there. Apparently there were, like, rumors in the building, no, he's here somewhere, someone saw him, but they don't know. And so they're doing the medley of songs, and they get to I Want to Take You Higher, and Sly walks out in, like, this jumpsuit. I think he had a silver mohawk. And he goes up to the keyboards and kind of starts playing the keyboards, and they get to the boom shakalaka, boom shakalaka. He does that for, like, a couple verses, and it sort of looks around and walks off.
Nice.
So, they do the medley, and it goes off without a hitch. Sly dropped in, walked off.
When you're Sly, you can do these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really sad.
If you're unfamiliar with Sly and the Family Stone, their greatest hits album is terrific. Go back, listen to that. You'll probably get it. He was wonderful.
All right. I think we can about wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think we've probably covered it.
It's been a day already. I mean, and I don't want to go over the latest in the Durant trade rumors, because everything that's been gone over with that has been gone over.
Yeah. This drops Sunday, so I hope everyone enjoys the big military parade. You established you're not a parade guy, correct?
Not only do I not like, I fucking hate parades.
I hate parades. I used to work summers at Disneyland, so I got to see I was generally working security every single night of the electrical parade back in its heyday. So I would see that twice a day. That's about all I need from a parade.
Yeah, no, call me a stick in the mud. I don't give a shit. I don't like parades, and I don't like fireworks.
Oh, I hate fireworks.
God, you worked at the worst place ever if you're at Disneyland. What
I stood.
How are you doing?
I mean, if you're standing literally under the Disneyland fireworks every night. I mean, that's sort of cool. But in general, and mostly it's my dog. My dog hates fireworks, so I hate fireworks. And we got some
I just don't.
jackass up the street who lights off the illegal stuff for a week around every holiday.
I don't understand it. Like, people are just so amazed by fireworks.
Yeah.
Like, it will cause accidents on the freeway. People like rubbernecking and all this stuff. It's like okay, you've got a phone in your hand that has access to all of humanity's knowledge.
Yeah.
Or 99.9% of it.
Yeah.
And you can text message somebody or text message somebody around the world and instantaneously get that message to them. To me, that's a lot more impressive than something that goes boom in colors.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Don't understand it. In every 4th of July, it's like, well, here we go. We got to watch the fireworks. Everybody wants to go. It's like, nah, I'm good.
I don't get it.
I'm good. I'm going
to parades like the Rose Parade.
Yeah.
People spend all night out there so they can watch it go by, and I don't get it. It looks like hell.
I don't understand. I don't know. Anyway, speaking of more fireworks and 4th of July coming up, make sure to protect your dogs.
Yeah. And maybe just don't shoot them off.
And don't shoot them off, or anything like that. And remember, there's probably some veterans in your neighborhood, too, and that could be a triggering event. But I don't want to get too serious on this.
No. All right.
Hey, isn't it Father's Day or something coming up?
Yeah. Sunday's Father's Day.
Yeah, all the fathers out there.
Happy Father's Day.
Mm.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah. See you next week.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.